Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Michael Markham. Hi.
Hello.
It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, wherever that is.
Yes, wherever that is.
Ah,
Yeah, I like to ask how you got to the way you're thinking now. So a little bit about the story,
oh
if you want
my.
to tell
Yeah,
us.
the short version.
You could take time, whatever is most helpful in your mind or in your thoughts.
Ah, um, I was a seeker for as long as I can remember. I grew up in Wyoming in an isolated ranch, and I can remember sitting on the sagebrush covered hills looking at clouds, wondering what was going on, who I was, and what was this all about? It seems to me that some people are born wired that way. Um, I asked my wife one time, I said, "Do you ever wonder what's going on? What's happening?" She's thought for a while and she said, "No." uh, but I did. And it continued all through high school, college. The first book I picked up, I think, was The Golden Bough, A Study of Comparative Religions, which is a big book and a lot to digest. I thought maybe somebody in some religion had found the answer to what I was longing, this emptiness inside, this suspecting something wasn't quite right. But this seeking continued for years and years. Reading books, ordering books later on from Amazon. I would get a rush when I saw the book arrive at the post office. And sometimes two books would come, or three. And I would read them and underline them and dog ear them and write in the margins. And then that thing that's pretty common with seekers, I'd find something I really like, and I couldn't remember where I saw it. So I go back through all these books trying to find it, because that's where the penny dropped, I thought, for me. And I wanted to go back to that. I really read everything I could find. I wound up in philosophy, non-duality, self-help, um, poetry, religions, Eastern religions, and I kind of settled into non-duality. I also studied the Course in Miracles for 10 years. I wore out two copies. I went through the daily exercises twice. Um, I signed up for transcendental medication. Transcendental meditation at a time when it was $150. This is years and years ago. And I, I, I think about 15 minutes a day, every day. So I would take time out of my day with three children and meditate for 15 minutes. And my, my, what is it? The mantra, mantra, yeah, was Shrim, Shrim, Shrim. But I thought it was Shireen, Shireen, Shireen for the six for 6 months. And the my teacher said, "Well, let's go through your meditation with you." He said, "What is it again?" And I said, "Shireen, Shireen." He said, "No, it's Shirim." So I thought, "Oh God, I've wasted 6 months." And so I went back to Shirim, and I did that for years. One time, after 5 years or so, I I went into a vortex for a mini second, just floop, floop. I was in and out. And I thought, oh my God, I stopped the mind. But it only lasted for just a tiny, tiny fraction of a plank time. And I was back. So I thought, I spent the next 5 years trying to get back to that, where, of course, you can't stop thought. We are thought. And that I've never heard of anybody who actually stopped their thought. I really haven't. I think people think they have, but it's there in the undercurrent. I see the sense of self and personal identity as nothing other than this incessant thought stream, not anything that could or should be stopped. But I settled on Advaita as a course of study, and all the people related to it, from Sankara up through Ramana and the Circuitata, everyone that everyone I could find remotely related to this. Probably 40 authors or so, all of the Circuitata's minions, the smoking lineage they were called. One night in Las Vegas, we went to a trade show because we had a clothing store. Twice a year we went to Las Vegas. We had to go, and I really disliked Las Vegas. I'm a recovering alcoholic, or that's what we refer to ourselves as. And the alcohol and the gambling and the everything, the noise, everything, I just couldn't bear it hardly. But I was in the Hilton Hotel one night, and as I was going to sleep, I was thinking that things don't exist. Actually, that things exist only in our naming of them. Separate existential entities exist only in our naming. Mountains, there's no such thing as a mountain. There's no line around a mountain. There's no line between a mountain and a valley. They are conceptual constructs, as are oceans and rivers and everything. And so I was thinking as I went to bed that if things don't exist, how real is the holder of them? And these are the thought pattern that came. How real am I if things don't exist? And I I caught a hold of that and started going into a vortex. Everything started to spin. And I thought, oh, it terrified me. It just literally terrified me. And I tried to get out. I tried to stop it, and I couldn't. And the thought came, this is from growing up in Wyoming with a rather coarse languaging. Um, this thought came, you little chicken shit. Your whole life you wanted this, and now you want to stop. And I let go, and I went through a grinding, chewing up process that beyond the ability of the objectifying mind to grab a hold of. I don't know what happened, but it was not pleasant. Um, I woke up the next morning weeping in the softest, kindest, gentlest world. I looked out the window and into Las Vegas and the green grass, and the man was walking a little dog, and he was bouncing along the ground, little terrier type. And I thought, oh my God, look at that. It's so beautiful. And I kind of slumped in the car as we were driving to the trade show. And oh, everything was waterfalls. How did they get water to go that high? And an iron gate. And so I was watching the iron gate drive by. I looked up from the car, and we were on Flamingo Drive, and we turned onto paradise. And I thought, oh, how appropriate. Um, Nothing's changed since that day, or maybe 10 years ago. And in the morning, I wake up into this soft, pleasant place that seems to be impersonal. It's no longer related to a sense of personal identity. There's still a person there. We wouldn't be talking here. We couldn't interface unless there were a person, unless there was a person. But it's not at all who I used to be. It's infused with the perfume of unknowingness. There's a sublime peace in knowing that nothing can be known. That knowing, we mistake description for unknowing, and all we have is description. I read a man's book on ants. He was a world authority on ants, and he studied them his whole life. He'd sit on ant hills and get bitten by ants, little tiny ants and great big ants and bullet ants, and he just studied them all, fascinated. His books are incredible. At the end of his life, he knew nothing about ants. All he did was describe their behavior. But he didn't know what ants were, and that can't be known. And we can't know who we are. We can't know who or what we are. No one ever has or ever will. The answer to the deepest questions arise within what might be considered a dream of separation. And any questions arise from within that dream and actually have no relevance at all. We can't get back to a place that doesn't exist. We cannot become enlightened. I see the brain, the actual physical brain, this gray jelly in the head, as the locus out of which this objectifying awareness emerges, along with its sense of self. And along with that comes love and beauty. Imaginary separation is required for love and beauty, and exists only in one creature, and that's us. I think we're the gem, the living gem of the universe. There's no reason to suspect there's anything remotely like us in the entire universe. Evolution never duplicates itself. Life may have evolved on other planets, but it wouldn't be like us. I think we're the best and the worst life has to offer. The complete spectrum of human experiential input is broad and vast and limited only by the brain can objectify, what it can turn into an object by naming. I used to speak at a philosophy class of a friend of mine, and I would talk this way, and some of the students were looking out the window, and some were trying to take notes, and I would say, "Oh, don't take notes, please don't take notes." And so they'd stop and they'd stare. It was 8 o'clock morning at college, and so I didn't expect a huge audience there. And so, uh, to get their attention, I would offer them $1,000 if they could name something that didn't have a name. And so they'd look around their room and look around, and I say, "You can look outside too." Um, One young man was thinking. He said, "Nothing." And I pointed at him like maybe he won. And I said, "Oh, no, we call that nothing." That's named nothing. Um, but they couldn't do it. And in the times I went down there, not one person ever has or ever could name something that doesn't have a name. And that should tell us really all we need to know. Our objectified world is the limit of our range, and it's vast and beautiful. There's stars and galaxies behind galaxies, and the new telescope will probably find galaxies behind galaxies behind galaxies. Um, oh my God, it's so wonderful to be human. It doesn't last that long, just a blink, really. Um, it's the only place where love and beauty exist. I mentioned to people that their dogs don't love them or their cats, and that always raises some ire, some even aggression sometimes. But love requires objectification along with its imaginary separation. Humans love each other. Um, in this great aloneness, I think every human being, every brain is ultimately alone in their objectified world. The Bible says ye are gods. And I think what we think of as our brain is the creator of our unique, one of a kind world. Nobody's ever been like us. Nobody's ever been like you. Nobody's ever been like me or ever will be again. It's a unique world and it's beautiful. Oh, my fingers actually tingle when I get into this space. I don't know what that is. um, but it pulls my attention away from what I was speaking about. Um, well, I think that's it. I think that's I think that's all. I think excuse me. I think. Therefore I think I am. Knowing that the self is mentally fabricated in ways makes it invulnerable. It it can't be really hurt or touched by anyone else. It can't it can't there's tremendous peace in knowing that our total existence is fabricated by a beautiful brain, highly evolved, primarily for survival and reproduction. But I've wondered where love, why love? Why is this deep love in human beings? And the only reason I can think of, which is again is objectification, which really couldn't come close, is that human life would be unbearable without love. It's too hard to be a human. Every human gets ground up, brokenhearted. Um, it's hard. We lose people we love, um, and we ache. I did bereavement classes when I was in hospice, and the ache of widows and widowers that come in with this stone, more hot stone in their stomach, in their chest. They just miss this person so very much. Um, but when asked, if I gave a speech at a hospice, that I would ask at the end if anybody would give up having known that person or that animal, if they would give up having known them, if they didn't, to to get rid of this pain they felt, and no one ever said yes, that they would take the hurt to have had that person or animal in their life. Um, Love is always greater than loss. I love being human. I love being a man. I love everything about being human. I love the midbrain. I love all the natural responses, all the urges. I don't. There's no control here, but in that no control comes this easiness of being softly relating to everyone. Um, it's quite delightful. I don't hear other speakers speak of this joy and awe of simply being. And I don't know why. I guess every pain is so profoundly different that whatever this is expressed fundamentally different. Although when I read people like some of the previous speakers you had, one in particular, I relate very much to them. A resonance like Tibetan bowls across the room. Their words penetrate into who the brain thinks its person is. um, there's a surprising lightness to being that's available. when we see all of our problems as well, they're not illusory. Problems are problems. We have to pay the rent. We get sick. Sometimes we get fatal diseases. Um, but it's possible to live in a world that's almost depersonalized. It's kind of indifferent to what happens. Not indifferent, but the idea if you're complaining about anything, you don't get it. We don't have control. We don't have choice. Life pulls us along to whatever and wherever it goes. Not too long ago, I had a stroke and I wound up on the floor, kind of curled up, shaking and thinking as the world got darker. And I thought, oh my God, I've had this most beautiful life. I have a wife I just adore. I have children I adore, grandchildren I adore. And I thought, well, that was it. This is just the most incredible life. And then I was driving in the ambulance. It got dark, and I was talking to the guys. I love first responders. I've used them several times in my life. They're always strong and vital and concerned. When I come to, I wake up and see these furrowed eyebrows, deeply concerned about who I am and what's happening. And they're really help. They want to help. They have a calling, I believe. I lost my track. Was I on a track? Let me think for a minute. What was that? Oh, I had a stroke. And then not too long ago, I wound up on the floor again with an incredibly painful headache. And I found out later after going to the emergency room and several doctors that it was trigeminal neuralgia, which is also known as a suicide headache. So I wound up with a neurologist. I love doctors. I have several. And this guy has a pill for me, and I take it, and the pain becomes bearable. I, it's just life happens as it does. It's just it's what am I trying to think of? You just get the cards you're dealt, and you kind of roll with them. You just whatever it is. I don't. There's no way to get here because there's no here to get there and no one to get. It's kind of a strangest phenomenon. This seeking. I believe everyone who reads the Course of Miracles is a seeker. They want peace that passes understanding, and I know that that's real. It's the only thing that makes. Oh my, no, I can't say that. No, I'm at the edge of where I wanted to go. Rumi says, we can speak no more, or hush now, we can speak no more. And that's, I think, the edge of objectification, but I don't know. I really don't know anything. But I have great comfort in knowing that nobody knows anything. I listen to these people who have very deep convictions and opinions on politics and religion and in enlightenment and oh gosh, anything, everything, abortion, capital punishment, everything. But there's no answers. If there were answers, it would be so obvious everybody would believe it, like gravity. We all believe that gravity kind of pulls things to the center of the earth. No one knows how. They describe gravity, but they have no idea what it is. We had one of our stores, we had a bust of Albert Einstein. It was nicely done. And a tall, nice looking man in his 60s came in and bought it, and was in a suit. Um, and I said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I'm the head of physics at Berkeley." Berkeley, California is one of the best universities in the world for physics. And so we were talking, and I said, "Do you understand E equals MC squared?" And he thought for a while and got a painful look on his face. He said, "No, I don't." And he said, "I'm not sure Albert Einstein did either." He had the math, is all, but he never understood what light and space and time were. Those are just labels. We never understand anything by putting a label on it. I think I mentioned that description is mistaken for understanding. There's comfort in knowing that nobody knows anything. We live in what amounts to a dream. A lot of the speakers talk of a dream of separation, of imagined separation. And we struggle against this dream, and this struggle becomes part of the dream. Um, there's a time when the struggling stops, or it can. But we can't do that. Somehow the brain has to be rewired or has to rewire itself. It felt as I went through this vortex thing, whatever it was, that it was actually a profound rewiring. I've spoken to other people over the years, and some of them went through 6 months of terrible pain and catharsis and personal Armageddon experiences. Um, and before this event, um, there is an author called U.G. Krishnamurti that is gone now. But he called it the calamity, and he was 6 months of terrible pain and agony. He woke up, I believe, in this place. I resonate deeply with what he says. He approached it from a different angle than I do. Um, that morning when I woke up, there was no doubt that this was the mind of Christ. This was the mind of Buddha. This was the mind of Brahmana, and this. Uh, there was no question and no where for doubt to arise. Everyone expresses it differently because every brain is so beautifully unique. And I find delight. I find delight in talking with people, some of which have been on your podcast. Um, there's a deep resonance, and there's disagreements, and that's just because the perspective is coming from different brains. But under that, there's a current of I don't know what it is. I suppose love, and that's as close as personas as we can ever get. Is through this shared languaging, this iCloud of language, we share our lives, and our lives become perfumed by the lives of others through words, through this objectification, this objectified world that we've tried so hard to transcend or improve or get to a place that exists only as another idea. When all the time here we are, safely ensconced in a beautiful human cranium who views the world through its own, very own, unique sense of personal identity, its own perspective, its own lens into the world that is very limited. Our visual field is very tiny. I've often wondered what color exists. I used to wonder what color existed beyond infrared and ultraviolet, and I just couldn't picture it. Oh, but it's big enough. It's plenty big enough. Um, Things I don't read anything anymore about this. The world fascinates me. If somebody will say a picture of the biggest moth in the world, I'll start looking that up on Google and read about it. I like animal videos and I post them on my homepage. Um, just anything that comes along. It also we've been confined to the house. I have so many pre-existing conditions. My wife is really frightened that I'll catch COVID. It doesn't seem to bother me that much, but I really go along with what she likes. I don't want her to become frustrated or frightened. So we've been confined to the house. And that's okay with me. I collect succulents and cactus and I go out and play with those and then I just do whatever comes up. And then pretty soon night comes and I crawl into bed and we have electric blankets so the bed is warm. And I lay there and think for a while. I used to get up, I'd think, and then I'd think of something I wanted to write down because this thought stream never stops day or night. And so I'd write stuff down, but I don't do that anymore, not so much. Well, I can't say that. I can't take a bath usually without wanting to write something down. And it's hard with pen and water and ink stuff. But I enjoy that too. I laugh at that. Everything seems okay, and also more than okay. Um, I'm not saying my life is trouble free. I have, like I mentioned, a lot of pre-existing conditions. I have 7 doctors that I can't pronounce their names. I mean, what their specialty is. My wife is handicapped, and so I try to vacuum and do dishes and stuff. But I enjoy that. She's helped me for 60 years now, so some payback. Gee, I do ramble on. I don't know how long I'm supposed to do this. Am I still here? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. And if you like, we can allow the others to ask some questions if they like.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, anyone who wants to ask a question, you're welcome to now.
No question.
Yes, Michael.
Yes.
This is Yana.
Hi, Yana. How
I'm
are
here.
you doing?
I
Oh,
am
wonderful.
doing well. I'm sitting in a car waiting for an Amish lady to come out of Walmart. But she's been in there long enough that I've had time to listen to you.
Oh,
So, in my perspective, there is a purpose behind loneliness.
mm.
There's a purpose behind what we go through. I was just wondering what your perspective is on loneliness.
Oh, I love that topic. um, the I, all of life, sentience in particular, is longing.
Mm-hmm.
It's longing for food, for sex, for shelter. Fox in the forest, constantly looking for something, longing. Life is longing. Even
Mm-hmm.
plants long for the sun. They reach for it. I notice my succulents, if they're placed in the shade, they stretch toward, and
Mm-hmm.
sunflowers follow the sun. Life is longing, and we are longing, but we are saddled with objectified longing also. We long
And
for things that exist only as ideas. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, you sweetie.
I just said yes.
Okay. Uh, we long for happiness, love, enlightenment, peace of mind. Those exist only as ideas. Our longing can never be satiated. Once it dawns that the sense of self is this beautiful mental fabrication, the longing continues. I've asked other people who speak of this, and they say, yes, I have the longing, but it's no longer personalized, that the longing
Mhm.
remains. I long to talk to people like you. I long, somehow your stories perfume my life. There is this great imaginary canyon between us that can never be crossed. And yet, across this imaginary space, we can see sparkling lights, hear laughter, and see campfires. Um, I love, I love these stories mingling, uh, enriching each other, confirming. It would be one person alone would die. In the deepest sense, we are each other, and but we can never we can never meet actually because we exist only as these imaginary personas. Although I would long to. I have people come for coffee and we talk and laugh and rarely talk about this stuff. We just have fun and giggle and sometimes laugh so hard we but then when they go I hold them for a long time, as if I'll never see them again, because that's true. When I hug people, I hug them for a long time because I'll never see them again, not the way they were. My granddaughter, when she was little, 3, 4, or 5, when she hugged you, she'd wrap her leg around you.
Mhm.
It was so, she was longing to be closer. And it was such a beautiful little feeling when she was 5 and 6 years old. Um, I never heard of anybody who did that before. Um, but we are this longing. It becomes not something that wants to be fulfilled, though. We see longing in other people and the love increases. The fact that you mentioned the longing, all of a sudden, whatever it is leans in towards you and says, yes, I know, because I have it too. Uh,
So for you, the purpose of loneliness is what?
well, not purpose as such. There is loneliness, there is aloneness, and
Mhm.
there is longing. No longer am I lonely, um, because there's no person really to be lonely, even though the sense of self is there. It's seen as a mental
Mhm.
fabrication. Um, I don't feel lonely anymore. I used to be all the way through high school. I was a recluse almost. We went to, I think, 12, 13 different schools. So I never had
Would
friends. I'm
would
sorry.
you would you say that the loneliness has got you beyond yourself?
Well, it, there's no self to get beyond. Loneliness and longing is the human condition that comes with this imaginary separation. It's the reason
Mhm.
people start seeking.
Right.
Um, I think it's the impetus that drives the machinery to find out why I feel this way. Am I the only one who feels this?
So
And
therefore it does have purpose
well,
because
um,
it's the impetus to get beyond yourself. It's the impetus to start you seeking.
yeah, well, I don't think in terms of purpose. I tend to think of things as just what just as purpose implies a meaning behind things, and there are no separate
Yeah,
things really.
right.
So when we assign purpose or meaning,
I get what you're saying when I get what you're saying in that purpose implies that there is a destination.
True.
And
Yes.
we are already here we are already in the now, and there's already a we're already there.
No. There's no we and no there. Those are concepts.
Right.
We live in a world, our brains live in a world that's composed of nothing but conceptual constructs. So there's no purpose and meaning to anything. We assign purpose and meaning, and then we get confused when it doesn't align with our preconceptions. Then we get frustrated and anxious.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help the search at all. I don't know what will help. I don't think I see seeking as a symptom of the dis-ease, not the cure. All my seeking got me nowhere. Like I said, I read, I don't know, maybe 1,000. My double car garage was lined on 3 sides with books. I took them to the landfill and 2 pickups to get them. I couldn't give them away because I really didn't want to burden others with that, and they were all dog-eared and written in anyway. So, I don't. Like I said earlier, I wore out 2 copies of Course in Miracles. I wore out 2 copies of I Am That by Nisargadatta. And what else? The Ashtavakra Gita that I really liked. In paperback, wore out 2 copies. I underlined so much of it that I considered underlining the parts I didn't like, which is hard. I gave up on that. It was it wasn't a frantic search. I actually enjoyed it. But all the time I was looking for something. I was looking for the right words, the right combinations of thoughts that would pull me out of this confusion. And the confusion is, you've heard of the goose egg in the bottle, haven't you?
No.
A teacher gives a group of students a problem. He says, you have a goose egg in a bottle and everything's good, but someday the egg is going to hatch and then you'll have a baby goose in a bottle. And then what are you going to do? And so you say, okay, the goose egg is hatched. You can see it. You have to feed it and water it and clean it. And so this baby goose is starting to grow now. And so he gives them this for 2 weeks. And somebody raises their hand and said, well, let's break the bottle. And he said, oh no. Or the teacher says, oh no, it's an unbreakable bottle. And so the goose egg's growing all the time. They're asking questions. And it's getting tight now. And the goose is having trouble breathing. And what are you going to do? So the normal thought process is it works itself into a frenzy over this baby goose that probably is going to die if they can't do something. And the beak is sticking out of the bottle tip now, and it's getting darker, and this is getting more worrisome. And so, they're in a frenzy now. But he says, he said, there never was a goose egg in a bottle. It never existed. It was a conceptual problem. And that's what the mind evolved to do, is to solve problems. It's a beautifully evolved survival reproductive program. And when it doesn't have problems like survival and cave bears, it will create problems. And it sometimes pile them up where, and again, some of them are real. The rent has to be paid. Children have to be fed. Babies have to be changed. Aging parents have to be taken care of. But all of that takes its natural course. All of it. Death takes its natural course. When I did hospice work, I would come in and sit with people. And it isn't that you have anything, you're palliative care. You're not there to make them feel better, make them eat more food, make them suggest that they exercise. You're just there to be with what is. And they are dying. And so you just sit with them and talk and say, well, what was your fourth grade teacher like? Oh, with fourth grade, let me think. Oh, yeah, Mrs. Winters. Then so they start telling their story. And oh, God, the stories are beautiful. But then all the time you're thinking, this lightness of being is aware right now. I don't know if hearing words about it help. They did, I thought, for me, but I don't know. I don't know if that precipitated this change, this shift in perspective. And it's really a subtle shift of perspective that's still part of the objectified overlay. Enlightenment is not an escape from the dream. It's just seeing it as a dream. We're not there already because there's no us to be anywhere. There's no there at all.
Michael, I'm going to shut my mic off now because my lady
Oh no,
is
I don't want you
back.
to go. I don't want you.
I know,
Okay.
but my lady's back. I need to go from Walmart to somewhere else, and when I get to somewhere else,
Oh,
I'll be back, okay? But
you love.
I will let somebody else have their turn, and I might be back, okay?
Oh, you love. It's so good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Your giggle. I love the way women.
I find that you are a synesthete. You get caught up in the textures and the nowness of things. You're a synesthete. So, and I know that is a label, and it's just a word, but that's how we communicate, right?
Of course, that's all.
If we have an experience that another person does not have, we have to use words to communicate, right?
Of course, of course.
So yes.
Yes.
But those people who get caught up in their experience are called, well, to me, they're synesthetic because they experience the ideas through, like, the color 9 has a taste.
Yeah, synesthesia. Yeah, we're all.
I actually held a talk about that at university, so.
Oh, actually, you're coming through my car radio now, so we can continue talking.
Isn't that amazing? Oh my goodness. There is, I suppose, a flavor of synesthesia in this. You taste, it's tasting other people's lives, infused with their perfume. And the people I sat with who were dying, literally, their stories became part of who I am. That's, I think that's love, is when our stories melt together, meld and melt. It's lovely to hear your voice.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Ah,
I appreciate you.
ah.
I appreciate your perspective.
Hmm. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
um,
So are there any more comments or questions?
I'll mute my mic here in a minute. Once I find a parking spot.
Hi, this is that other Michael.
Hello, Michael.
I've been having the strangest experience. I had to go to the store during all of this, and I would say at least twice in a given block, some electromagnetic wave would knock me off this call, and I'd have to stop and rejoin. So it's been kind of in and out, but I definitely got the idea where you're coming from, and um, I'm having a
Oh, I think we lost you, Michael.
Yeah, could you speak a little louder, Michael? Because we hear you pretty quietly. Okay. He'll be back as soon as he can. Anyone else have a comment or a question?
I have a comment. I'm Julie. Hello. I was thinking about you kind of talk about not having a self. I just kind of want a little clarification on that because, I understand that you're talking about just being in a state of being and being present in the spirit of it. But how do we know, what to, how to use our spirit in a way that we're supposed to be using it? How do you know where to go if you're not a self? You're not self-directed.
Well, I think, am I speaking loud enough? There is a belief here that the sense of self is a beautiful mental fabrication. I feel it feels like having a foot in two worlds. One, this imaginary world of self and its objectified world, and the other world is the physically manifested universe. And the brain, the objectifying human brain, blends those two into almost a composite of two experiential realms. The physical world, I believe, is real. I believe we can never see it or know it through the naming of it, though. And if it has a name, it's imaginary. There are no mountains, there are no oceans or rivers. Those are just names. So, but there is a vast, flowing, unknowable plasma goo, for lack of a better word. But the only way we can know it or experience it is in the naming of it. There is a sense of self here, a personal identity. Without that, I couldn't speak to you. There would be no speaking. But we're sharing a dream. We're sharing this languaging that we have in common. If we were speaking Polish, I couldn't enjoy you as a story. In English, I can enjoy you as a unique group of memories, stories about an imaginary persona, of which the brain speaks of as I am. You can't get rid of the self because it never existed. You are not a self. You are an objectifying brain, a beautiful objectifying brain's perspective of the world. You emerge downstream from the brain's objectification and sharing through language of a physically manifested universe. There's nothing you can do or not do to manipulate that. But the self is as real as mountains are, in that they exist only as ideas. The self is the imaginary locus, the imaginary center of personal intent that emerges within this beautiful, objectifying human brain. There's nothing wrong with it. It's lacking nothing. It can't manipulate its own world, but through it, the brain gets to view a unique world, a unique perspective. Your world is different than mine. Males think differently than females. I think that's wonderful. That's where the magnetism comes from. I love the magnetism. I love women. I love the way they walk and talk and giggle. I love the way they flip their hair and close their eyes. I love everything about them. I love men. I love the way they walk and the way quite often men will stand in front of a woman if danger is present. I love that. I love the gentleness in both of them. I love the kindness. I love everything. Through that love, I get to love this imaginary sense of self. I get a feeling of what it's like to be a real person. I used to call it Pinocchio-itis. I just wanted to be real. But sense of self is not an enemy. It is not something at all. It's a beautiful collage, swirling collage of self-referential memories. Self-referential memories. It's a story built up. It's a shivering hologram emerging in this imaginary light between who everyone thinks they are. I emerge and exist only in your light. Something here knows that. One person is no person. Your light goes out into the world. You are the light of the world. You are the light of your own unique world. Your brain is the light. One time in one of my posts, I ask where the light in your nighttime dreams comes from. You have light in your nighttime dreams. What is the origin of that? It's the brain. Gosh, I got off track. I don't know if I answered your question or not. The self is relevant only in this objectified dream of separation. But that's good enough. I like being a self. I like being a papa. I love when my grandbabies say, Papa, Papa, look at this. Come here, Papa. I don't see them very much as I used to. And I ache for that. I long for that hugs. I used to wrestle when they were little. They've gotten 10 and 12 now, little girls. And they're too old to wrestle, and I'm too old to wrestle too. So, but we wrestle, the three of us, and my son has a French bulldog, and we would all, four of us, wrestle on the ground, and this little bulldog would try to get to my face, and he's so I would get to laughing so hard. The girls would laughing, and we'd roll and tumble, careful not to hurt each other, but still rolling in each other's life. It was so beautiful. I hope they have that memory the rest of their life. I hope they wrestle with their grandchildren. Well, I used to lay in the rain when they were little, and they'd lay on my back in the rain. I'd lay on the grass. They'd get on my back and curl up, and we'd talk. And I'd say, "Oh, Gwenny, can you feel the rain?" Yes, I can, Papa. I'd say, "Gwenny, will you lay with your children in the rain?" She said, "I will, Papa." And one time she said, Papa, I could go to sleep here. I said, oh, I could too, Gwenny. We never got cold. It was always warm. That's what the sense of self offers, the deliciousness of life and awareness that we're aware. It's the only place in the world that awareness is aware that it's aware. It's the only place in the world where love and beauty exist. And also the only place where the loss of love can stab a knife in our heart. I see people as mirrors for us. When that mirror is broken, the light from them is gone. We can't see our face in their light anymore, and that hurts. The sense of self is all of that. It's not something that needs to be gotten rid of or changed in any way. I think if you could see your own perfection, you would fall to the ground weeping. Did I get anywhere close to the mark with that?
Yeah, thank you. I especially at the very end when you began to kind of reference it back to self-awareness, because for me it's like we are, I see myself as a self, who's active, who's doing things, who's out there. But if you add in self-awareness, it's about being aware of how I'm expressing myself in love, ideally with everyone in every moment. That's living my spiritual truth.
Mm. Yes,
But
this moment.
with a self-awareness, but you're doing it because have some.
I'm sorry, hon, we got cut off. Oh my.
So
Oh,
I'll
shoot.
ask you another question, Michael. You've been speaking a lot about the brain, and most traditions that I know of would not reference the brains as the place of self. But anyways, what would you see as the origin of thought? Is it you speak of the brain as what picks up on the separation, right?
Yes, yes. I think when we think of thought as a thing in itself, the thought itself of thought is what creates a fundamental confusion. When we think of awareness as a thing in itself, as a separate existential entity, only confusion results. I've read, I don't know, a fair amount of books, just, I don't know, 6 or 8 on the brain and thought and the origin of thought and language is, so I see no reason to believe that what we think of as thought, that's a funny word, what is thought of as thought, this constant rough brain chatter, this internal dialogue, originates in the frontal cortex of the human mind. When people have a stroke, say for instance, their thought can be profoundly affected. I sat with a man who was dying, who couldn't speak, and so they told me he couldn't speak, and so I went in and talked to him, and he looked at me and like he wanted to say something, and I said, "Oh, I know you can't speak. Can you write?" And he nodded his head. So I handed him a piece of paper and pencil, and he couldn't write either. That part of the brain that communicates is gone, whatever it is. So a stroke killed those brain cells that that he used for speaking. They can also kill brain cells for thought. In my stroke, they killed brain cells for sight. The whole upper left quadrant of my visual perspective is blank. It's black. It shows up on the charts. The brain kind of fills that in like it does your blind spot. You can't see that because the brain fills it in. When I look out, unless I talk about it, the world looks quite normal, but a third of it is blank. All of that seems to happen in the brain. I can think of no other source. People suggest that the brain is just an idea itself, but it does have a physical counterpart, this gray jelly-like mass in our head. When we think of a fox or a deer, they generally tend to believe that the fox and the deer's reactions occur in their deer brain and fox brain. But when it comes to human brain, quite often thought they say or that their belief involves seeing the brain as more of a receiver. And the receiver, the sender of thoughts, they can't quite articulate, which I see as just another definition of a God. And to me, God doesn't exist at all. There's no reason to think there's anything higher or better than human mentation in the universe. There may be other life forms, but they wouldn't be like us. Evolution never repeats itself. I think like I just did.
It's interesting because in A Course in Miracles it says we are spirit, right? And we're not bodies at all. And you were studying A Course in Miracles so many years, and now you've come to this voicing this idea of the body being the origin of certain experiences, which is really interesting, coming from studying what's a teaching that speaks of spirit as us being spirit and not bodies at all.
Right. I see spirit as another idea, another guess at what and who we are in our attempt to discover who and what we are, where we are, our purpose, our meaning. All of that naming of things ineffable is an attempt to find out what's happening. Everything that doesn't have a physical counterpart is imaginary. There's no such thing as spirit. You can't touch it. You can't bring it out. You can't measure it. It's an idea. It's a nice, pleasant place. It's comforting to think that we are spirit, and some people are happy with that. But generally, they're not happy too long. They want more. Ye are gods. You are the light of the world. The kingdom of heaven is within. All of that, to me, are wisdom teachings that have come down through the ages. Some of the Bible is beautiful. Some of what Jesus said is incredibly beautiful. But whatever this is emerges in this ever-emergent momentary. It's alive in this tiny fraction. Not even now. There's no such thing as now. There's no such thing as things. If it has a name, it's imaginary.
Yeah, and A Course in Miracles, it's speaking of various, a path that goes from the dream to the happy dream, right, to the real world, to heaven, right, as the diction of A Course in Miracles. What do you think of that?
I think the dream is all there is for us. I think once the brain sees it as a dream, and how that's done, I have no idea. It seems to involve a rewiring of sorts. But when and if that happens, it is the happy dream. It is the happy hunting grounds. It's the Elysian fields. It's heaven. It's Dulcinea and Beatrice and Shems. It's all of those and more. It's emptiness overflowing. It's oh my God. I watched a video of a mother gorilla and a mother holding her baby up to her, and the gorilla wanted to hold the baby so much. She reaches up to this glass and touches it, and she wants to cuddle the baby. And that, it was heartbreaking for me. But only humans can experience that heartbreak. Only humans can experience this love. This is it. This is as close as we'll ever get. There's nothing beyond us. There is nothing better than us. God, Walt Whitman said he celebrates the body electric. Everything about human. He said he loved the smell of his own armpits. He treated, he nursed people in those terrible hospitals in the Civil War. He cleaned wounds and he just dove into life. One of his partners, he said, plunged their tongue into his heart when they were laying in the field. That is so piercing and so beautiful and so human. Oh God, it's so beautiful to be human. And like I said, it won't last that long. I can see the ocean from where I speak, which is meaning I'm in the delta of my life. And looking back through everything, through the ups and downs and drunkenness. I was a practicing alcoholic for 16 years and did everything alcoholics do. I have no regrets. I have no, I couldn't have changed anything. We don't have choice. Choice is an illusion. There's no choice anywhere in the universe. Our judgment disappears when we realize bank robbers have no choice but to rob banks, and we have no choice but to put them in a place where there are no banks. Self-judgment disappears. Judgment of others. You see people as sublimely innocent. Not even innocent. There's no word for it. Pristine. Perfect in themselves, whatever they are.
Yeah, of course, in Miracles says holy, right? So.
Whole, yes. Whole, holiness. Whole, yes.
Whole and holy and complete and perfect. Yes, all those words are used in A Course in Miracles to describe who we are. Perfect and so on.
Perfect, yes. The Christ light itself. You are the light of your unique world. You are the creator. Your brain is the creator of this named place, like a consensus conceptual overlay in dream, for lack of a better word. There's no analogy for who we are. Dream comes as close as anything, but it's not a dream really. We can't name our condition because we are it. We are the living of it. Our attempt to name it, know it, understand it is all part of it. It's I don't mean to laugh because I know how painful the search can be. 50 years for me, frustrating. To me, it's like strapping a laser beam to a cat's head. And everywhere they look, the laser beam is. And they go to get it, and then it moves. And then they move it over there, and then they go there. And it's just like we spend our life with a laser beam attached to our forehead,
Yeah,
thinking somewhere.
in A Course in Miracles, it speaks of that being the ego, right? That says, search but do not find.
Yes, yes, search but do not find. That's the command. um, yes, I remember that.
So anyone want to comment or ask questions? Anyone else?
No questions. That's good.
Yeah, so I think it's really fascinating to hear how you describe life or being human in superlatives. Really a joyful description of what it means to be human, right? And
Mm,
how that is something that is very difficult for many of us to do because we experience all the hardship you're speaking of, right? As well, right?
yes,
That you went through or that you experience, but you interpret very differently at this time in your life and in the way you
yeah.
see things now. So it's really fascinating. Yeah.
Uh, it is really interpretation, a slightly different perspective. Um, Self, ego, to me, are the same idea. Uh, this imaginary persona that the brain fabricates out of memories. Um, Beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, but it's not and is not and cannot be used as a vehicle to escape its imaginary condition. It's like the brain creates a sense of self and then pushes it out into an unknown, unknowable world, searching for its own relevance. And it has none. There's no meaning to life. There's no purpose anywhere in life. And life is just a label, also. We're really stacking shadows to reach the moon. We're trying to use labels to understand the deeper meaning of labels. There are people who study the origin of words and attempt to find their true meaning. And they can spend a lifetime doing that. I think they have a name for it. I do, but I forgot. But words have no deeper meaning. Apple. I mean, there's no deeper meaning to apple. You could search its origin, I suppose, but you wouldn't know any more about that thing that we call apple. Nothing can be known. Nothing can be known by putting a label on it. And that's all we have is labels.
I have a
Yes.
Hi, Michael. So I'm at work listening, so I might have missed some stuff. But my question is, I'm in is that you believe we're not spirit, right? We're just experiencing life through the brain putting out the images out there. Is that fairly to
Mm.
say?
Well, we're not experiencing the world through images. I see the brain as experiencing the world filtered through its sense of self. It's ego, for lack of a better word. The ego and self exist only as an idea, but the brain has a physical counterpart. It can be stimulated to find memories. It is the origin of this conceptual overlay that it mistakes for reality, along with its imaginary sense of self. And so this through the sense of self, the brain is struggling with its own ideation. And it's a futile struggle. It's the search but do not find. The sense of self is a beautiful survival program. It's incredibly effective. There's 8 billion people on, I think, no, how many billion? 3 billion people on Earth now or more. So it's very successful. It's a beautiful, highly evolved mechanism, but it has a downside in that when turned inward, when it tries to find the meaning of life, when it tries to find its own purpose in life, the brain itself gets confused, and it cannot solve the problem on the level of self. There is no problem, really. There is no self. Somehow the brain can see that, and I don't know how. It will struggle until it doesn't. And sometimes I've seen people that over time gradually change without a catharsis. I know of 4 that live in this sublime peace without ever having gone through a rewiring that they knew about. So apparently the rewiring can happen over time. But again, I'm guessing. I really have no idea. No one does. No one knows more about this than you. This is Julio, is that right?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Julio, yes. There's no authority that knows more about this than you do. Nothing can be known about it. We cannot know about our condition because we are it. Nothing can know about itself. What? Because there would have to be a knower and a knowee. It would have to be separated from itself. And this imaginary separation is only conceptual. It doesn't actually exist. So how can it be healed? How can you get to a place that doesn't exist?
Correct. And what happens then when the brain passes on? When now it it's destroyed, it dies. Is that I think is it? No more. Game over.
Game over. The sense of self evaporates. If you sit with someone who's dying from, say, Alzheimer's or dementia, any form of dementia, you can watch as they gradually disappear. They disappear in front of your eyes. The body's there, but the self is dissolving. The brain cells are literally dissolving. And the memories, which compose the sense of personal identity, are dissolving too. Who would want to live forever? To live forever would be the worst form of hell imaginable. No escape. You can, if life gets too hard, too bitter, too painful, suicide is an option. It's not a bad thing, but knowing that's possible kind of relaxes into, well, if it gets worse, if it gets too terrible, I could kill myself. And people do that, or actually brains do. But yes, there's no such thing as spirit. There's no such thing as self. And as the brain dissolves, as the brain dies, sense of self evaporates, and its entire world, an entire unique world, never was anything like it, will disappear. I think
I
that.
agree. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Agree with you. I agree with you on that. That there's definitely no need to be living forever on this planet Earth, or whatever we call life. It's too hard for sure.
Yeah, once is enough. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go through it again. It was too hard. It was. I'm sorry. It's too hard to be a human. And what that realization does is open your heart to others who also, have had a hard life. Everyone has a hard life. No one gets out unscathed. This is the battleground. I see people as heroes, even toddlers. They fall, they cry, they get cut, they get up, they walk again, they venture out into the world. And people with age have been brokenhearted, have been wounded. I see everyone's chest festoons with Purple Hearts, which is a medal in the U.S. gives for wounded, the walking wounded, tear-stained bloody sheets, shrouded in bloody sheets. But they still get up. I see warriors everywhere. I don't know. I love people. I just watch them. My wife goes to Target and I sit in the coffee shop and watch people, and sometimes interface with them. I was watching a young mother relate to 3 children, and one of them was just a little devil. He'd try to hit her, and he'd grab stuff and knock it off his shelves, and she would hold his hand and say, "No, hon, no, don't try to bite me. No, no." The other 2 were just jewels. And as she walked by, she was a bit haggard. I said, "You're a wonderful mother." She said, "Oh, thank you so much." She was a wonderful mother. This holding this baby saying, "No, no, don't bite mommy."
So I
She's
have a
going to have,
question to
of
read out
course.
for you, Michael.
Okay.
I got it written because it wasn't working audio before, right? For our guest. So, okay, you are
Can you
saying
hear
that
me
we
now?
don't exist. There is no identity prior to us, manifesting as food, and after the food we think is eaten, but they don't exist. That's the question.
Yes, all these beautiful metaphors that you're painting the room with are just air.
Of course. Everything is just air.
So I'm just wanting to get, a little time to talk about who is this we that you're talking about that's using a brain?
Well, there is no we. To me, this is just a belief system that exists, I think, or this brain thinks within itself. The we, the sense of, was it the we you ask about?
How can this brain talk about it like that and say, this brain? How can you refer to yourself as this brain?
Well, to me, that's the brain referring to itself as this brain using its sense of personal identity.
So there was nothing prior, no decision was made. How did you end up as a brain?
I was born as a baby, and it took a village to create a child. It took a village to create an ego. My first birthday, when I learned to write my name,
Wait.
all of those. I'm sorry.
Yes, I get that. I don't, and what happens is we run out of time with all this description. So I understand what you're saying. You're saying that, well, I guess it's kind of the Buddhist perspective of quote self, small s self, that existed because of causes and conditions. And that's certainly true of this world. But you're just, okay, so your brain, does your brain tell you that there isn't anything else? Where did you get that idea from?
Oh, I think where all ideas come from. They ferment and emerge within this objectifying frontal cortex.
Okay, so there's no reality to the dream, to
of course
the
not.
idea that you're just a brain. There's no reality to that. It's just
Of course.
a thought that
Yes.
you've decided is pleasant for you.
Well, this brain has become comfortable with not only that, but with this sublime peace that passes understanding that never leaves. I see all beliefs as beliefs about the dream. So that would have to include my own beliefs about the brain.
But does the sublime peace, is that a brain
Mm.
construct too?
Everything experienced is a brain construct for us. Everything. The sublime peace that passes understanding is also a brain construct. It occurs within the brain.
So, what about people who remember past lives? You know, especially
Mm.
young people, and
Mhm.
then they do their research and they meet the previous family, and everybody, it comes to the understanding that yes, wow, she really is who she said she was.
Mhm.
Um, how do you explain that? Did that come from the brain too? Where'd the
Right.
brain get
That's
that from?
well, you're assuming it's true. They're subjective proof.
Well, you're assuming it's
Subjective.
true.
Well,
You know, you're
I'm
assuming that
yes,
you're really there speaking right now.
yes, of course. Going back to past lives and future lives, if there is no self, which we may or may not agree on, what is it that transcends time that can live in another family?
That's
If
right. What is it?
I don't think it exists. I don't think there's been a subjective double-blind test on past lives. There's a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
books.
there have been.
Oh,
There may be
well,
some of the books that you haven't read, but they're out there.
oh yeah, I'm sure. Uh, I think that once we start on a premise, the brain tends to reinforce that.
Yes, but we're talking
Again,
about people. We're talking about little children.
oh, of
They
course,
don't have any
yes.
premise, you know, unless and they may have a premise, but if the premise
Excuse me.
they have, it's got to be from somewhere else.
Okay. If that is your belief system, then that would be well. I don't see that as your belief system. I see you as that belief system. Um, if if what I consider your brain is content with that, then you have no choice but to stay with that. If it makes you happy, if you find sublime peace or the peace that passes understanding, there's nothing wrong with that. If if you're still questioning, still wondering, that's an indication that there's some unsettlement in your mentation. I can
Oh
honestly
well,
say here,
yeah. My
I
experience
can,
is like that. Yeah, it, my experience takes me from spirit um, to this world, and in this world, I experience the whole range, and there are times when um, everything is just perfect in this world, and then there are other times when I'm still learning because it's not, you know, the flow isn't perfect, and so I think, I don't know. All I can say about that is, you know, I can have theories about that. I can theorize that someday, some incarnation, maybe, I will get everything perfect every time. Maybe, you know, but I also, you know, believe the Buddhist idea of the Bodhisattva, and I've certainly taken that vow. So I don't, you know, it's kind of weird to say that this self, this, well, whether you think of it, call it a brain or whatever you want to call it, that this quote a not self uh, is going to come back and you know, have another incarnation as another not self, but there's no self. You know,
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Oh, I'm not here to disabuse you of beliefs. Uh, I do, all I can do is present what life is like here, and the way this brain perceives its unique world. I can honestly say the peace that passes understanding never leaves. It wakes up with me in the morning, and when I go to bed at night, it kisses me on the forehead. My nighttime dreams, however, are rough and ragged. I get lost. I can't find my home. I get in fights with people. I get in really aggressive fights. I have sexual dreams. The brain is in free spin at night. In the morning, I wake up into this beautiful world with squirrels and birds. My wife is asleep and warm. Um, I look out into my succulent collection, and everything is zippity doo dah day, and it never goes away. I'm speaking only of how I experience the world, and I am the way this brain experiences the world. If I really, we were talking before about whether or not this idea or these ideas would be compatible with those who follow the Course in Miracles, and I didn't think they would be, but they are in many ways. I can hear your voice.
Yeah,
I
I
like
can
the
dig
sound
it.
of your laughter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
where this experience um, originated, you
Mm,
don't know. I mean, it's coming to you through the brain, and your body's been through all kinds of changes, and so who knows how all this came to where it is now. But the thing is,
mm,
that is the way it is, and you're just describing your experience.
truly,
And
that's all we
it
can do.
doesn't, it doesn't say anything about anything other than your experience, right?
Truly, I think that was what Jesus was doing. He was explaining his experience
Oh, I do
of
too.
the.
I agree. In the Course in Miracles too.
Mm. Buddha was explaining the way he experienced the world the best he could, the
Hmm.
best anyone can. Speaking in parables is as close as we can get. Speaking in analogies and stories. Uh,
Ah,
these little vignettes that I speak of as my life
right.
is as close as we can get to our world and sharing of it.
I totally agree with that.
Can I
I
add
love the
something?
sound.
Can I add something
I'm
to
sorry.
that you're talking about? What about the people that are not experiencing that peace? They're always in
Mm,
trouble. Could be because of not that they decided not to be at peace, but just the way they were brought up. Let's say they're brought up into a world where the war is happening, and they have a war, and they're experiencing all these terrible things. They're
mm,
experiencing the brain for what you're saying, and at the point when that brain dies, let's say they get killed, was that again just game over? That was just their experience, and there was nothing else. There was no
yeah.
learning experience from it. There was no collective uh, part of
Mm.
love and the peace that we are pretty much everybody's looking for. Was that just their experience, and that was it?
That was it. I grew up in an brutal alcoholic household. My dad was a raging alcoholic. When my family fought, there was blood on the ceiling. It was violent and unpredictable. I was molested as a baby, as a child. Um, I grew up in war. It was war for me. Uh, when my dad came home drunk, my brother would take the first violent body blows, and I would try to knock him out from behind. And I grew to be fearless in that. I would wait for the next one, and I would look in a room and see what I could use to knock someone out with. I did that for years after he died. I would go in her room and look for hard things. Uh, but that doesn't compare to a lot of people's lives. A lot of people had it much more horrendous than I have. I started a group for adult children of alcoholics. And the story I've heard are unbelievably bad, terrible lives. But I think like the body, the mind heals itself. I feel healed. I have no emotional charge related to my childhood. My brother calls up and wants to talk about it. And he is unhealed as far as I can tell. But I don't. I don't hold anything against my dad. I see everyone as choiceless. He suffered from acute anxiety, which the males and well, two of my granddaughters do. My son does. I do. Um, so he did, and the only way he could deal with it was alcohol. And so that's the way it was. But out of this little boy became fearless, and so I owe him that. I owe everyone in my life. Everyone has a cookie lady in their life, someone who loved them at a rough time. Mine was a fourth grade teacher, and a man who used to come to the ranch who actually talked to me and looked at me. Enough water to get through the desert. I love people because of their stories. Most of them, a lot of them have it much worse than I had. And I love them. I love them warrior. I love people. I love the sound of your voice. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. I really I can feel that you are definitely at peace, and I feel that how you can see this life. You know, you're looking at the life through the eyes of the good. You know, the good, the positive, which is great. You know, I really love that, and thank you for letting us be in your experience. Thank you.
oh, thank you, Julio.
Michael, do you have a sense that you chose those things, that you chose to be loving and chose to be happy and chose to find the beautiful, or did it just happen to you?
Mm. Yes, I don't believe we choose anything. I think choice is an illusion. I think the brain reacts according to its programming and labels its own choice illusion, or labels its own reaction choice. Um, there's no choice anywhere in the universe. A fox doesn't choose, he just reacts. A human doesn't choose, we just react. This is programming. We are the brain's programming.
So,
Um,
haven't you ever
but
had a sense at any given moment that you could choose that you had, like you could choose to react in anger, or you could choose to react with love?
mm, I did. I did before this change and before the vortex experience. But I don't know if you heard that or not, but I reacted like other human beings. I held grudges. I wanted to get even for things where I thought I'd been stepped on or whatever, and fantasized about uh, getting even with people that hurt me. I was a typical human mind. But after this switch, as the sense of self lost its opacity, as it lost its relevance, there's really no one there to hold a grudge. um, when people
So
are seeing this
at
choice,
that point, I'm sorry, at that point, you
no.
never faced that choice again?
Mm, well, I act as if I had choice. If I go to the breakfast, my wife keeps a number of breakfast cereals on hand for me, and I go and look at them, and then my hand reaches out and I pick one. And I act as if I had a choice, but I know I don't. Uh, there's a lot of research done on this, and the time it takes the brain to react and the time the sense of self becomes aware of it is measured in seconds now. There's a
Right.
time gap. And so that alone eliminates the possibility of choice. And the sense is the belief in choice. So
Well, what's the
once,
point of adult children of alcoholics then? I mean, if you're always
oh,
reacting
oh,
and there's never a
it was
choice.
before. That was long before this experience, before the change in perspective. That was when I was in my 40s, I believe. This experience happened. I'm 78 now, so it happened when I was about 68. So all of that alcoholism and everything was before, all the life story, all the blood and sweat and tears was before this change in perspective.
Okay.
I enjoy.
Did was the vortex something that affected your brain?
I believe so. It felt like a grinding, like a tearing, a shredding, and as I mentioned, it took me to a place beyond which objectification and thus memory could go.
Was there
I don't
something
remember.
physical? I'm sorry, was there something physical that happened to your brain?
I believe so. I woke up in a totally different world. I woke up
But
in
there
a
was no
world of,
scar, no scars or anything, right? Nothing
oh
that
no,
any objectively would say happened.
oh no, no, nothing medically. Uh, it seemed like a rewiring of the neurons themselves. Something happened, and other people I've talk about a rewiring of the brain also.
Well, but they could
Um,
be speaking metaphorically.
of course, I'm not, and I don't think they were either, but I don't know for sure.
A lot of
Uh,
people do
it,
use that word that way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't. It's not metaphorical. It seems like an actual change in the way the brain perceives the world. Um, it's still an objectified world. Enlightenment, or whatever they call that, is part of the objectified dream of separation. It's just a subtle change in the way the brain sees and experiences that involves this sublime peace that passes understanding.
Okay.
Um, the,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I understand. So, yeah, okay. I'm not having that experience. I've had some really great transcendental experiences, but I still come
Mm,
back to having choices to make. And it's a slower learning process than what you're
mm,
describing in the vortex. Um,
yes, yes.
yeah, and
Usted antes de jugar con su
that's the only
amigote
difference.
y contar su triste historia, le planteó rezar y meditar. Yo estoy en Holy Spirit, le dice.
Really? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Me neither.
that. You sweetheart.
Hi, sweetheart.
You sweetie. Uh, what were you trying to say, hon?
Come again?
Cool. Oh, okay. Could you say that again? What you were saying?
Uh, I just opened my Telegram and um, and you will speak with some person. I understand nothing. I just arrived here.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we're recording a podcast. Anyways, I will come to an
Why
end now.
nobody's on camera? Why
Oh,
nobody's on camera?
yeah. This is just a podcast without a camera.
Okay. Let's get this wrapped up because we're coming to the end.
Oh, shoot. It doesn't seem like it.
Well, it's time.
Oh,
Let's put it that way.
of course. Of
And
course.
anyways, I would like to add something to the discussion about brain and spirit and so on, because this has been going on a while. For you, brain is a huge explanation, which is a wonderful explanation for many things. And there's many books about how the brain works and how genius functions and what principles there are for geniuses and so on, and how that works, and that one doesn't need a special brain to be a genius and so on. Anyways, it's just principles. But independent of that, in my understanding, there's this experience that there could not be such a thing as not existing, right? So this idea of there being an eternal life or spirit that exists independent of the body comes from an experience. And you are speaking of this peace that surpasses goes beyond understanding, right? And that's something that sounds very eternal, or something that is there independent of what is going on.
No, it doesn't feel eternal here. It feels, I know something here knows that I will disappear when the brain dies. I have had several colonoscopies in which they give you propofol, and they put a needle in your vein and count to 3 and you're gone. You're literally gone. You disappear.
No.
I'm sorry, honey.
That that doesn't happen when a person dies.
Okay. Well, everyone.
When a person dies, uh, the human body can die, but the soul and spirit are immortal. And when a person dies, the person has 24 hours to watch all his life,
Okay.
and at a little time to visit the lovely person who are dead, and like parents, like that mom with have time to see how about this person, and and um, the life with this human form we have depends what kind of life we have in this life. If the person is a good person with good karma, uh, consciousness, making try to make him happy and other people, and awakening life. If this life is this way, could we have the possibility for not turn around uh, in this terminal world full of suffer, money issues, so becoming in pure energy.
Okay. Yeah, many
That
people believe that. It's a
what
for like many people believe that, and that's okay. Uh,
many people
I
what
Many people believe
many
that. Many
believe
people,
what
yeah, believe that the soul is eternal.
believe. Sorry, I speak
Mhm.
British English, not use English. British.
Yes. Uh,
Some you think it's only a belief, not real?
yes. I think everything is belief. Our whole world is nothing but belief.
Ah, you are
And
like a Brahman. The Brahma is dreaming with us. It's a very
yes.
nice. It's a very nice to stay this place in Maya world or this illusion.
Mm. I think I think I don't see that as your beliefs. I see you as those beliefs. There's a
Come,
difference. There's
come again. To, to
I
fast.
don't
Your
I
English is too fast. English is you say English, no? You say English. So slowly, please.
okay. I don't see you as a
Mm-hmm.
person. I see
Mm-hmm.
you as a bunch of beliefs about the nature
A
of
bunch.
reality.
But now I get lost. Bunch.
Okay. Yeah. As I see you as a collection of beliefs.
Uh,
Mm,
I, I,
okay. Um, I do not see you as a person or a self. I see you as a brain's accumulation of beliefs, a brain's lifetime of beliefs. There's a huge difference in those two perspectives. If I don't see you as a person, I see you as an imaginary person who exists as the brain's belief system. And I have no desire to change that. All I'm speaking about is the perspective, a way I see the world. And you see the world differently. And I honor that. I think that's wonderful. If you're happy with that, or if your brain is happy with that, then stay there if you can. I don't know if we're talking, if I'm getting through or not. It's about time. I think that the meeting ends.
Yes.
Yes.
It's good if we come to an end. Yes, this is a wonderful thing to see, that there's these different perspectives on it, right?
Yes.
And that
yes.
your perspective certainly is one that many people think is unpopular, right? To say there's things end, right? Or they have a beginning and they have an end. But that doesn't mean that the message that you're bringing of enjoying life and allowing things to be as they are is less important, right? So that's something that I think all perspectives have to have together.
Yes, just perspective.
That are coming together here, right?
Isn't that grand? I've enjoyed this very much, and I thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome, and I thank everyone for participating. Please inform other people about the podcast so they can listen as well, and review it on whichever platform you listen to it on. And thank you for everything, and until next time.